Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into something absolutely incredible. We are unpacking a legendary university lecture from a literal master of science fiction and fantasy, and we are focusing entirely on the nuts and bolts of writing a novel. You know, if you've ever just sat there staring at a blank page, completely overwhelmed, wondering how the pros actually build these massive worlds, and more importantly, finish their drafts, well, you're exactly in the right place. Let's explore the super practical realities of the writing life together.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our highly structured course syllabus for the next 10 minutes or so. We've got 1. The writer's mindset. 2. Gardeners versus architects. 3. Building consistent habits. 4. Writing in real life. And finally, 5. Surviving writing groups.
So starting off with Section 1, the writer's mindset, redefining the odds of success.
Before we get into the fun stuff like plotting or character arcs, we kind of need a stark reality check. 1 in 20. The speaker notes from his own teaching experience that out of all the aspiring students taking this legendary class, only about 1 in 20 actually go on to become full-time professional writers. Sounds a bit daunting, right? I mean, if law school told you that, you'd probably run for the door. While it's definitely not the 1 in a million lottery ticket people sometimes claim it is, the odds are undeniably tough. But hey, there's a really important flip side to this.
Success doesn't only mean publishing. Listen, an unpublished novel is absolutely not a fail state. Simply finishing a book puts you in this highly elite minority of creative people. The drop-off rate between people who just talk about writing a book versus those who actually type "the end" is massive.
Our source makes this fantastic point. Quote, "I would not jump to, when are you going to play for the NBA? Think about it. If a 40-year-old tells you they play pickup basketball every Wednesday, you just say, that's awesome, good for you. You don't instantly ask when they're signing a multi-million-dollar NBA contract, right? Writing should be treated the exact same way. It is a fantastic hobby. Honestly, it's just really good for your soul to learn how to take the stories bouncing around in your head and put them onto a page."
All right, moving right into Section 2, Gardeners versus architects. Finding your unique writing style. And this brilliantly illustrates a massive myth we absolutely have to debunk when it comes to the actual craft of writing. It's this false dichotomy that traps so many new writers. On one side, we have the gardeners. These are discovery writers who start with an interesting premise and just explore it organically. For them, over-outlining totally ruins the magic and excitement. On the other side, you've got architects, writers who thrive on highly structured outlines, fixing plot problems right up front. But here's the real secret from the source. Even architects are discovery writing. They're just doing it in smaller leaps between 2 bullet points. The takeaway here? All creative types are welcome and valid. Whatever method gets words on the page for you is the right method, period.
Now, the source uses this amazing metaphor from the card game Magic the Gathering to explain the learning curve. You want to focus on small instincts to free up brain space for high-level tactics. When you first start writing, you're obsessing over tiny minutia, right? You're actively trying to cut passive voice or fix basic pacing. But as you practice consistently, those little rules actually become unconscious instincts. You literally no longer have to think about them. And that is huge because it frees up your brain's processing power to focus on massive high-level storytelling and really complex plot tactics.
This brings us to Section 3, Building Consistent Habits, the math of finishing a novel. So when it comes down to the mechanics of finding time to write, steady consistency totally beats chaotic binge writing every single time. 500. This is a super vital benchmark. 500 is the number of words an average writer generates in just 1 hour of focused work. Now, sure, some write a little faster, some slower, but 500 is a really solid, fantastic average. And let's look at how powerful that single hour can be over time.
Just watch how this builds into something incredible. If you can commit just 4 hours a week, say blocking out a single Saturday morning, you are generating 2,000 words a week. Keep that up and you will have a 100,000-word full-length novel in exactly 1 year. Even if you only have 2 hours a week to spare, you get a novel in 2 years. You don't need to quit your life. You really just need steady consistency.
Speaking of quitting your life, what about your day job? Well, the source shares a really surprising and honestly pretty funny fact about mental energy. Mentally taxing jobs, things like computer programming or teaching, can actually exhaust the exact same brain space you need to write stories. Conversely, physical or menial labor, like bricklaying or working a graveyard shift at a hotel, can actually be the ideal jobs for an aspiring writer. Why? Because they leave your brain totally free to just put on headphones and plot out your epic novels while you work.
Moving on to Section 4, Writing and Real Life, Protecting Your Boundaries and Your Family.
Now we have to pivot for a second to talk about the emotional toll writing can take on your personal relationships, because there is an incredibly fragile psychology to what we call the writing zone. The source notes that when a writer sits down, the first hour might only produce 200 words as they slowly ramp up. It's really the third hour where the magic happens, and they hit that 1,000-word mark. Because of this ramp-up time, a tiny 15-minute interruption from a roommate or a spouse doesn't just cost you 15 minutes. It completely resets your brain, causing a 45-minute delay just to get back into that productive zone. So yeah, tiny interruptions are extraordinarily costly.
So how exactly do you protect your time without completely alienating the people you love? Well, here is the strategy. First, set strict physical barriers. For instance, establish a hard rule: no writing from 5:30 to 9 p.m. Be present. Second, turn your family into allies by letting them act as guardians of your writing time, literally protecting you from outside distractions. And third, share your creative breakthroughs with them. The speaker tells this great story about a dinner at a place called Mama Chu's, where he was so completely consumed talking shop with other authors that his wife felt practically invisible. You absolutely must put boundaries in place so you can step out of your fantasy world and actually be present in the real one.
Finally, we reach Section 5, Surviving Writing Groups, the dark side and the bright side of feedback.
Look, engaging with a creative community is absolutely essential, but you have to understand the huge difference in feedback types if you want to survive it. Let's start with descriptive feedback. This is expressing your personal, natural reaction to the text. Just saying things like, "I was bored," or "I am confused." This is the absolute gold standard of critique. So the crucial point is that a reader's confusion or boredom is never invalid. It is exactly the natural reaction the writer needs to hear to diagnose a structural problem in the story.
Now contrast that with the dark side of workshops, prescriptive feedback. This is when a reader tells the writer exactly how they would fix the story. They say things like, "Oh, you should add a fight scene here," or "make it a vampire story." This is super dangerous. Well-meaning peers are accidentally trying to rewrite your story into their story. As an author, you must be incredibly careful not to let this kind of feedback spiral your project away from your own original vision. So how do you handle actually being in the hot seat? Here is your definitive, actionable framework for receiving feedback gracefully. Step 1, write it down. Step 2, stay completely silent. Step 3, prevent yourself from defending or explaining the work. Just pretend you are a literal fly on the wall. If you jump in to explain what you meant, you instantly lose the chance to figure out how to explain it in the actual writing. Just take it all in and process it later.
Which brings us to a deeply important question for you to reflect on right now. What are you willing to accept for your writing journey? Think about it. If you were to live to 100 and die with 150 unpublished manuscripts just sitting in a drawer, would you still be glad you wrote them? The source urges you to recognize that simply telling your stories is a profoundly worthy endeavor all on its own. Whether your goal is to write a single book a decade just for the sheer fun of it, or to fight to be that 1 in 20 who goes fully professional, the choice is entirely yours. So embrace the mindset, fiercely protect your time, find your unique style, and just start building your world one brick at a time. What story are you going to start telling today?